Every single day, millions of older adults spend money searching for the secret to anti-aging. They buy expensive creams, they try trendy supplements, they look for one miracle ingredient that promises to turn back the clock. But the truth is much less glamorous. Aging does not begin in the mirror. It begins silently, deep inside the body, inside the blood vessels, inside the brain, inside the muscle fibers, inside the immune system, inside the tiny structures in your cells that are constantly being damaged, repaired, and damaged again. That is where real aging happens. And one of the most powerful influences on that process is not sitting in a cosmetic bottle. It is sitting on your plate. In one major study published in Nature Medicine, researchers followed more than 100,000 adults and found that people who consistently followed healthier dietary patterns were far more likely to reach older age with better physical function, better mental health, better cognition, and fewer chronic diseases. That is what most people misunderstand. Anti-aging is not only about living longer. It is about preserving the quality of the years you still have, keeping your memory sharper, keeping your muscles stronger, keeping your arteries more flexible, keeping inflammation lower, and keeping independence for as long as possible. Today, I am going to show you the anti-aging foods every senior should know about, not fantasy foods, not internet superfoods, not exotic ingredients that cost a fortune. I am talking about ordinary foods with extraordinary effects on the biology of aging. Foods that show up again and again in the scientific literature when researchers study healthy longevity, cognitive protection, muscle preservation, and inflammation control. Stay with me until the end, because the final food is one of the most underestimated foods for aging well. Most people think of it as a digestive food. Very few realize it may also influence inflammation and the gut changes that often accelerate aging. Before we get into the list, let me make one thing very clear. No food can make you immortal. No berry can erase decades of smoking. No oil can cancel out chronic sleep deprivation. No single meal can stop time. But certain foods can absolutely help slow some of the processes that make the body age faster. Processes like oxidative stress, chronic low-grade inflammation, insulin resistance, loss of muscle mass, declining blood vessel function, and the gradual changes in the brain that many people wrongly assume are just normal aging. They are common, but common does not mean harmless, and common does not mean unavoidable. My name is Dr. William. For many years, my work has focused on nutrition, metabolism, and the biological mechanisms that connect food to disease prevention and healthy aging. For this video, I reviewed evidence from major dietary pattern research, aging studies, and peer-reviewed publications on brain health, inflammation, muscle preservation, and longevity. I am not here to sell you a powder. I am not here to promise you eternal youth. I am here to show you what the evidence actually suggests. Let's begin with the first anti-aging food every senior should know about: extra virgin olive oil. At first glance, this does not seem dramatic. It is just oil. But biologically, extra virgin olive oil behaves very differently from the refined fats that dominate the modern diet. It contains monounsaturated fats, yes. But more importantly, real extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols, natural compounds that help protect the body from oxidative stress and inflammation. Why does that matter so much as you age? Because one of the fastest ways the body grows older is through damage to the vascular system. Your arteries are not just passive tubes. They are living tissues lined with delicate cells that regulate blood flow, clotting, inflammation, and oxygen delivery. When those cells become irritated, inflamed, and dysfunctional, aging accelerates. Blood pressure rises, circulation worsens, the brain receives less efficient blood flow, and the risk of heart disease and stroke climbs. This is one reason Mediterranean-style eating patterns keep appearing in healthy aging research. Again and again, those patterns emphasize olive oil, vegetables, legumes, fish, and other minimally processed foods. Not because olive oil is magic, but because it supports a biological environment that is less hostile to healthy aging. If you want to use this in a practical way, drizzle extra virgin olive oil over vegetables, beans, salads, soups, or whole grains. Use it to replace less healthy fats, not simply to add more calories to an already excessive diet. That distinction matters, because anti-aging nutrition is not about adding random healthy foods on top of harmful habits. It is about replacing aging accelerating choices with aging protective ones. And that brings us to the second food, fatty fish. If you are over 60, this one deserves your full attention. Aging does not only affect memory and heart health, it also affects muscle. Many adults lose significant muscle mass as they get older, especially if they are inactive or undereat protein. That loss is not cosmetic. It changes balance, strength, walking speed, resilience, and independence. A weaker body ages faster. This is where fatty fish become so important. Fish like salmon, sardines, trout, herring, and mackerel provide omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA. These fats are incorporated into cell membranes throughout the body, including the brain and muscles. They help regulate inflammation. They support cardiovascular health. And in older adults, research suggests omega-3s may modestly improve measures of muscle strength and physical function, especially when intake is sustained over time. That is a crucial detail. Most people think of fish only as heart food. It is more than that. For seniors, it is also a resilience food, a mobility food, a brain food, a food that may help the body resist some of the inflammatory and anabolic resistance changes that come with age. And if you are wondering what anabolic resistance means, it is this. As we age, the body becomes less responsive to the usual signals that help build and maintain muscle. In other words, the same meal that once supported your muscles at 40 may not do the same thing at 70. That is why nutrient quality matters more with age, not less. Aim for fatty fish a few times per week if possible. And if you do not eat fish, that does not mean you are doomed, but it does mean you need to think more carefully about how you are getting anti-inflammatory fats and high-quality protein into your diet. Now, the third food may be one of the most powerful on this list for the aging brain. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, collards, Swiss chard, arugula. Most people know these foods are healthy. Very few understand how impressive the data actually is. In one well-known study of older adults, people who consumed roughly 1 serving of leafy greens per day had a significantly slower rate of cognitive decline compared with those who rarely ate them. The difference was so meaningful that it was equivalent to being about 11 years younger in cognitive age. Think about that, 11 years, not from a drug, not from an expensive treatment, from a daily habit as simple as regularly eating leafy greens. How can something so ordinary have such an effect? Because leafy greens are densely packed with compounds the aging brain appears to value: folate, vitamin K, lutein, nitrates, antioxidant polyphenols. These compounds are associated with blood vessel support, reduced oxidative stress, and better protection of neurons from the wear and tear of aging. And there is another reason I take this food category seriously. Leafy greens are efficient. That matters tremendously for seniors. As appetite declines with age, every bite has to work harder. You do not always have the luxury of eating huge quantities of food, so the foods you do eat need to deliver a high concentration of useful nutrients. Leafy greens do exactly that, but let me give you one warning. A single wilted leaf on a sandwich does not count. I am talking about a meaningful serving, a bowl of sautéed spinach, a generous salad made mostly of dark greens, not iceberg lettuce, a side of kale with olive oil and garlic, a vegetable soup loaded with greens. The body responds to what you consistently do, not what you symbolically do. Now, if leafy greens protect the brain partly through nutrient density and vascular support, the next food helps from another angle. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. Small foods, but biologically not small at all. Berries are rich in anthocyanins and other flavonoids, plant compounds associated with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. In a large study of older women, higher long-term intake of berries was associated with slower cognitive decline, with benefits equivalent to delaying cognitive aging by roughly 1.5 to 2.5 years. That is not trivial. And once again, we see the same pattern. The foods that protect healthy aging are often the ones that reduce chronic inflammation, support blood vessels, and protect the brain from cumulative stress. Berries also offer another advantage for seniors. They are practical. You do not need them fresh from a mountain village in Europe. Frozen berries work beautifully. They are often more affordable. They last longer. And they can be added to oatmeal, plain yogurt, smoothies, or even eaten thawed with nuts. Just be careful what form you choose. Berry-flavored pastries are not berries. Berry syrup is not berries. Sugary fruit snacks are not berries. If the food contains more added sugar than actual fruit, it is not an anti-aging food. It is a dessert wearing a health costume. Now let's move to the fifth food, beans and lentils. This is where many people lose interest. They want anti-aging to sound glamorous. They want it to come in a gold package with a celebrity endorsement. But aging biology does not care about marketing. Beans, lentils, and other legumes repeatedly show up in healthy dietary patterns linked to better aging outcomes. And there are good reasons for that. They provide fiber, they provide minerals, they provide plant compounds, and they provide protein, something many older adults do not get enough of. As people age, protein intake becomes more important, not less important. Muscle loss increases frailty. Frailty increases falls. Falls increase disability. And disability steals independence. That chain often begins much earlier than people realize. Beans and lentils help because they bring together two things the aging body desperately needs: protein and fiber. Protein helps support muscle maintenance. Fiber helps with cholesterol, blood sugar control, satiety, digestive health, and overall metabolic stability. And unlike highly processed snack foods, legumes do not create the same rapid spikes and crashes that can quietly worsen fatigue, overeating, and poor metabolic health. They are not exciting, they are effective. A bowl of lentil soup, beans added to a salad, chickpeas with olive oil and herbs, black beans next to vegetables and fish. These are simple meals, but simple meals repeated over years create very different bodies. And now we come to the final food, the one many people overlook: fermented dairy foods such as plain yogurt and kefir. This may surprise you. When most people hear anti-aging, they think antioxidants, they think vitamins, they think skin. They do not think about the gut. That is a mistake. Because as we age, the gut microbiome often changes in ways that may affect inflammation, immunity, digestion, and even aspects of brain health. In a Stanford study, a diet rich in fermented foods increased microbiome diversity and lowered multiple inflammatory markers in the blood. That is an important clue. Why? Because chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the central features of aging. Some researchers even call it inflammaging. You may not feel it happening in a dramatic way, but over time, that background inflammation contributes to cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, immune decline, and other age-related problems. Plain yogurt and kefir are not magic shields, but they may help support a healthier internal environment, particularly when they replace ultra-processed desserts or sugary snacks. The key word here is plain, not neon-colored yogurt dessert loaded with sugar, not candy disguised as breakfast. Real yogurt, real kefir, live cultures, minimal added sugar. And if dairy does not work for you, the broader principle still matters. Foods that support the gut may also support healthier aging. Now, after hearing all of this, some people will make a mistake. They will try to rank these foods. They will ask, which one is the single best anti-aging food? That is the wrong question. Because the strongest evidence in aging research does not point to one miracle food. It points to a pattern. A pattern built around nutrient-dense foods like vegetables, fruits, legumes, healthy fats, fish, and minimally processed fermented foods. A pattern lower in ultra-processed foods, lower in excess sodium, lower in processed meats, and lower in the kinds of empty calories that accelerate disease while pretending to be convenient. That is the real secret. Not one food, a pattern. But if you want to start simply, here is what I would tell you. Replace butter or refined spreads with extra virgin olive oil more often. Eat fatty fish regularly. Make dark leafy greens a near daily habit. Keep berries in your freezer. Put beans or lentils into your weekly routine. And choose plain yogurt or kefir if it works for your body. You do not need perfection. You need consistency. Because aging is not decided by one birthday. It is decided by the repeated signals you give your body, week after week, year after year. The food you eat is either helping your cells stay resilient or making the job of aging harder than it already is. If you are a senior or if you love someone who is, this is not minor information. This is daily biology. The future version of your brain, your muscles, your arteries, and your independence is being built right now, meal by meal. Choose accordingly.